Hi, I'm Wendy Turner, Executive Director of Michigan Public. You might have heard that public media is under threat. You're not wrong. But I come to tell you that your voice has power. Visit protectmypublicmedia.org, contact your lawmakers, and take a stand today.
From Michigan Public, this is It's Just Politics. I'm Zoe Clark.
And I'm Rick Pluta.
Together we can make Michigan great again.
Another week, another candidate announcement for statewide office.
I'm Mike Cox, and I'm running to be your governor.
Republican Mike Cox announced he's running for Michigan governor in 2026. On today's show, as we continue our conversations with the candidates, Michigan's former Attorney General joins us.
But first, in a rare move, the Michigan House Oversight Committee this week authorized a subpoena.
The Republican-led committee is targeting Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson for refusing to share election materials with lawmakers.
These are materials that go out to clerks across the state in order to run elections.
Representative Jay DeBoyer is the chair of the Oversight Committee, and he told me the subpoena is because Benson has refused to share all of the information she has with the committee for months.
Right. Rick, you spoke with Representative DeBoer.
I started by asking him just why the subpoena and why now.
So the Secretary of State's office has had 4+ months to comply with some requests made by the co-equal branch, the legislature, House specifically, with training materials that are being used to train local township, city, village, and county clerks in the execution of elections. We have statute in place that governs the rules by which elections are to be run. And when the Secretary of State's office does not provide transparency by providing the training documents, memos, and information that is used to train those clerks to execute elections, how on earth is an oversight committee, an elections committee, or the House supposed to do their job? And then they come out with statements that, like, this is weaponization of government. No, this is exactly what the people of the state of Michigan deserve, which is transparency in how their government is run. So your question was, why a subpoena? And the answer is, because in 5 months they haven't complied. So a subpoena now has been issued that they're to comply.
What do you say to the Secretary of State's argument that providing these documents could or would help facilitate election tampering?
That is a very, very poorly thought through excuse is what that is. Rick, I was a county clerk for 12 years. I had access to the training portals. Rochelle Smith was a township clerk. She had access to the training portals. There's 5,000 people in the state of Michigan, round number, that have access to the training portals. Yet she doesn't want the chair of elections in the House of Representatives to have access to the training portals. Is that an allegation against Chairman Schmidt, that she believes that Chairman Schmidt could be compromising the integrity of elections? Because that's all it can mean. Chairman Schmidt's job is to oversee elections from the legislative perspective. My job as the chair of oversight is to oversee divisions of the government to make sure they're operating within the standards that's expected of them. And for the Secretary of State to refuse to provide training information to the chair of elections is preposterous. You know, at some point you have to wonder what their motivation to block is. So it's stunning to me that we're asking for training materials and their defense is we might compromise the integrity of elections. It's frankly embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And that to me says to me, what is it they're trying to hide? Tell me what it is they're trying to hide.
You know, a lot of clerks already have access to this training material. You must be at least somewhat familiar with what's in it.
Well, that portal is ever changing, right? That training portal is ever changing. Now, if you want to go into speculation, which I really don't think we should do, but speculatively, I don't know what it is that you could be hiding. But when you know that Representative Schmidt and myself want to know what you're teaching the clerks and what you're telling the clerks on how to administer an election, and maybe you've told them things that doesn't comply with Michigan law, maybe you wouldn't want us to see the training materials.
The Secretary of State has indicated if served with a subpoena, she's at least ready to go to court. Is there any middle ground on this that might prevent that sort of a legal battle?
Well, it's telling if that's the case. If the Secretary of State is going to go to court to prevent the chair of elections and the chair of oversight from having access to training manuals in training portals, somebody is being snowed. Somebody is having the wool pulled over their eyes.
Representative Jay DeBoyer, thank you for your time.
You bet.
Okay, so Republicans, obviously they're angry that not all of the materials have been shared. So they issue this rare subpoena. But Rick, what does the Secretary of State's office say?
Well, that's what I was wondering. So I reached out to get a better understanding. Deputy Secretary of State Ogogo Edevie, welcome to It's Just Politics.
It's my pleasure to be here to chat with you and your audience today.
Tell us, please, what are the materials at issue here, and why does your office say they are so sensitive?
I just want to start off with making sure that we set the groundwork. This is their playbook. In 2020 and 2022 and 2024, Republicans decided to sow doubt in our election results well before voting even happens so that they can claim fraud if they lose. They're simply trying to undermine our election system. And we have now provided over 1,000 pages of documents. What is now being requested are documents and procedures about the security of our voting equipment and the names and personal information of the voters of the state. It would just violate my oath of office if I provided them documents that gave a roadmap to undermining the security of our voting equipment. I can't do that.
But these are materials that are already shared with local election officials to train election workers. They're out there. So what's so secret about them that they can't be shared in, well, any form? Wouldn't that help by showing people how elections are run?
Well, let's be clear. Not all of the documents in this database are training material. We are willing to provide training materials. There's never been a dispute about that. What we are not going to provide are things that provide access to secure procedures for how we secure our voting equipment, ballots. We just can't provide things that would undermine the security of our election system. And that's part of what's at issue here. Let's not forget that there's a former state representative who has been charged with tampering election materials. This is a group of politicians who have proved that they just cannot be trusted with sensitive election materials. And so we're going to stand up for our election system.
Do you get why members of an oversight committee of elected officials would be upset at a state department, any state department, saying, we're going to pick and choose what we're going to show you? I mean, Republicans are asking, how does that build faith in elections?
Yeah, I don't think we're picking and choosing. We have already provided, as I've said, over 1,000 pages of documents. That's a lot. And we're willing to provide more. I had a member of my team reach out to Chair DeBoyer to ask to sit down. I personally gave my phone number to Chair Smith, and we have been reasonable. And none of these attempts to sit down and discuss this have been accepted. So we're not trying to pick and choose. We're being reasonable, and I think our track record shows that.
You, your office, say that you will fight this subpoena in court if necessary. How would that work? What's your case?
Well, we'll see if it comes to that, but we've obviously already complied and supplied over 1,000 pages of documents, and we're going to continue to provide information. In the letter that we actually sent them this previous Monday, we outlined a system and a timeline to provide all the remaining documents in e-learning. So we're not hiding. We're not trying to take anything away from their right to have oversight. We're just saying that there are certain documents, certain materials that are necessary to preserve the security of our election system. And we have a red line on that. We just cannot do anything that would undermine the integrity of this election system.
Deputy Secretary of State Ogogo Edevie, thanks for sharing your perspective.
Thank you.
Needless to say, Zoe, this subpoena is something we will continue to watch, But we should note just yesterday, Republican Speaker of the House Matt Hall was full-throated in his support of subpoenaing the Secretary of State's office. That, of course, is run by Democrat Jocelyn Benson, who is herself running for governor.
And speaking of running for governor, yes, the 2026 race is still a year and a half away. But that is not stopping candidates for big statewide offices in Michigan from announcing that they are running. This week, Mike Cox jumped into the race for governor.
Cox was Michigan's Republican Attorney General from 2003 to 2011.
He ran for governor once before in 2010, but lost in the Republican primary to Rick Snyder. Mike Cox joins us now. Welcome.
Good talking to you.
Good to have you.
First of all, give us your elevator pitch. Why are you running for governor?
I'm running for governor because my parents immigrated to Michigan in the 50s because it's the best state with the most opportunity in America. And we're a long, long way from that. In fact, Rick, I have granddaughters in Mississippi who get a better education than the kids in my neighborhood in Livonia, Michigan. And folks who've grown up here, that is heresy. And we have to fix our economy, fix our schools. And we have a whole lot of work to do, and I have the right background as a successful attorney general running a state government department and as a successful businessman over the past 14 years.
What is the biggest issue facing Michigan and Michiganders right now?
Well, number one is the economy, and we need to make some real changes. And what I say we need to do is two primary things to fix our economy: make us look more attractive to out-of-state workers, more attractive to young people to stay here, more attractive to employers, is first and foremost eliminate the tax on work. Government calls it the income tax, but it's really a tax on everyone's work. There are 10 states who've already done it. It works all across the country. And all those states uniformly are more prosperous. And so, Zoe, I think that's job number one. Then we move on. Part of that is that we have to reinstate right to work. I think a lot of your listeners know what that is, but that means that no one can be compelled to join a union. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we value all jobs. We value union jobs. We value non-union jobs. Because when job creators look at Michigan, some of them aren't crazy about union employment, or they want their employees to make the choice. And so I say, let's reenact a right to work, eliminate the tax on work, and we will have a very attractive environment.
Well, let's talk about eliminating the state income tax. That's big, and that's a huge chunk of the budget. A proposal that big deserves some concrete, honest plans on how to make up that lost revenue. Tell us how you do it.
Okay, of course. Well, first and foremost, I'm not there right now, Rick. And the states, in fact, Oklahoma is just moving to it now, and with an incumbent governor. Tate Reeves in Mississippi moved to it earlier this year. It's a lot easier to explain when you're there, Rick. But I can tell you this. If you look at Governor Whitmer's record over the past 6 years, what has she done? She's taken a $55 billion budget up to $83.5 billion. That's over a 40% growth. The state share, because that $83 billion is and a half billion is both federal and state. The state share has increased by, I believe, $17 billion right now. Eliminating the tax on work is $12 billion. Could we do it on day one? No, but we could do it in the course of a gubernatorial term.
Give us just one substantial program that you would be looking at eliminating in order to replace that lost revenue.
Sure. I would start with SOAR.
The Governor's Economic Development Fund.
Yeah, and the related plans that have dropped $4.5 billion over the past couple of years to try and buy jobs. You find out later only 1 in 10 of the jobs actually appears. Here's the reality, Rick. Those states that go to no income tax, they boom in terms of revenue because I'm not smart enough. Governor Whitmer isn't smart enough. Elon Musk isn't smart enough to predict every successful company. So I say let's lower the tax burden on everyone, and that's just one example.
Let's continue to talk policy. The last candidate to win the top office in Michigan, Governor Whitmer, focused and continues to focus on fixing the damn roads. This includes a roads plan from House Republicans as well. A new report says the state needs an additional $3.9 billion a year to fully fund road repairs. Do you have a road fix plan?
Well, Zoe, I do know this, that I wouldn't drop a roads plan and then leave town the next day, which Governor Whitmer did. So the speaker has already identified a way he did it in lame duck, a way to identify a $3 billion roads plan. That's something I would start with. But part of this is like someone becoming the new CEO at Ford Motor Company. Some of the things can't be fully addressed until you see the books and see everything that's happening. It was that way when I was Attorney General. It was that way when I started my business. I didn't know everything that would happen or how I would solve everything. I just knew I would, and I had to if I wanted to be successful as Attorney General or be successful in my business life.
We are joined by former Michigan Attorney General Mike Cox, who just this week announced his run for governor in 2026. In your campaign video, I noticed there are at least two folks wearing Make America Great Again hats. You said in your campaign video also Make Michigan Great Again, obviously leaning into President Donald Trump's supporters. A poll out this week from actually Republican-leaning firms shows support among voters declining since January for Trump. Politically speaking, I mean, you're a political animal. Is this a good political move to align yourself so closely with the president, particularly when we know independent support, swing voters, will be an important electorate come Election Day?
Well, first and foremost, I don't turn away any voter. I want the vote of every Republican, every MAGA Republican, every Democrat, every independent I can get. Number two, President Trump has a certain way of dealing with issues in the press, and he's one of a kind. I'm not President Trump. I admire his policies, admire what he's trying to do to protect our border. When I was Attorney General, I was the one who said the Secretary of State couldn't issue driver's licenses to illegals. I stood up with Jan Brewer to allow state officers to detain illegals. And so I like a lot of his policies. He wants to reduce the tax burden on Americans in order to, he wants tariffs in order to protect American jobs here in Michigan. I support all those policies. And by the way, even Mike Duggan and Gretchen Whitmer talk about the potential benefit of tariffs. The bottom line is I'm running to be the governor of Michigan. Most of the issues President Trump deals with are federal issues. But I would never run away from a guy with his political skills or his ability to get things done.
But on that, the party in the White House typically struggles in the midterms, including in Michigan. What makes you think you can defy that trend?
Well, first and foremost, there's also a trend that when one party's been in office in Michigan for 8 years, that the voters turn against that party. And Rick, today, as we're speaking, as you, I, and Zoe are speaking, Michigan has the second highest unemployment rate in the country. Today, as we're speaking, fourth grade reading levels in Michigan are only better than two other states. I think people want a renewed and resurrected Michigan, and that's why I'm running.
Finally, before we let you go, you've already put $1 million of your own money into this campaign. How much are you willing to spend?
Well, I'm out every day meeting voters, which is free, and trying to raise money to support the money I put in. I wanted to show everyone I have skin in the game. And my skin I made myself. It's not daddy's or mommy's money. It's my own money that I made myself. I want to show people that I'm willing to sacrifice for my money and my time for the future of Michigan. And some people I'm going to ask them to sacrifice their money by providing donations. Some people I'm going to ask sacrifice their time by providing volunteers. Ultimately, I don't know how much it's going to cost, Zoe, but I'm going to raise the money I have to raise in order to change Michigan.
That is Mike Cox, former Michigan Attorney General, Republican, who announced this week he is running for Michigan governor in 2026.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And you can hear more interviews with candidates for statewide office at the website michiganpublic.org. And that is It's Just Politics for today. I am Zoe Clark.
And I'm Rick Pluta.
Let's talk again next week.